I was slicing vegetables in their kitchen when my daughter-in-law said it. "You're not even contributing. Why should we keep feeding you?" At first I thought I'd misheard her, but she didn't blink. She meant it. And Daniel, my own son, didn't even flinch. He just sat there scrolling through his phone like this wasn't his business. I turned to him and asked if he heard her, and he barely looked up before saying, "Mom, we've talked about this. Groceries are expensive. You've been here for 2 months. It's starting to feel like you're not trying. Guys, please like and subscribe and tell me where you're watching from. Thanks." I stood there, knife in hand, stunned. Not trying? I cook, clean, do laundry, pick up Ava from daycare. I've been helping however I can. He didn't even acknowledge it. "But none of that pays the bills," he said. Maria tied up the trash, like it was just another chore. "We're not trying to be cruel," she added. "But this isn't working anymore. We can't afford an extra mouth. It's not personal. It's just survival." That word, survival, coming from 2 people who ate dinner every night on plates I washed and with food I'd paid for with my own debit card. "You want me to leave," I said, "over food." Maria barely looked up. "We thought maybe your sister could take you in. Or a co-living senior facility? You'd have more of your own space anyway." My sister had been dead for years. They both knew that. Daniel stood up, sighing like he was the victim here. "Look, Mom, you raised me to be practical. Rent, daycare, inflation, it's all insane. This isn't sustainable." I looked at him, remembering the years I worked late shifts just to buy his books, the Christmas I skipped dinner so he could have a decent gift, the $18,000 I pulled from my retirement to help with their wedding and move-in costs. And now was a grocery bill. My suitcase was already packed, sitting by the door like a stray dog's leash. "We'll call you a cab," Maria said, glancing at her watch. "You'll be fine. You'll land on your feet." I looked around the kitchen, the groceries I bought still in the fridge, the casserole I made still on the counter, and I didn't cry. I just picked up my bag and walked toward the door. "The rent on this place," I said. "I helped cover it for a year, so you 2 could stay afloat." Maria rolled her eyes. "And we're grateful, but that doesn't mean you get a lifetime pass." I nodded. "Right, a lifetime pass." Then I stepped out. No hug, no goodbye. Just the sound of the door locking behind me. What they didn't know was that earlier that same day, I got a call from a lawyer. My late brother had left me his entire estate, including a fully paid-off fourplex in a central part of the city. I hadn't told them because I wanted to see how they'd treat me when they thought I had nothing. Now I had my answer. I sat on the curb outside their building for 15 minutes after the cab dropped me off, holding my suitcase like it was the only thing I had left. The ride had been quiet. I didn't say a word to the driver, just gave him an address for a budget motel near the train station. My mind kept circling back to one thing: food. That was the final straw for them. Not the years I'd spent raising Daniel alone. Not the fact that I paid for half their furniture or cleared the last chunk of their wedding debt so they could start fresh. It was a bag of groceries. That's all it took to erase 3 decades of sacrifice. I remembered the first time Daniel got sick as a toddler, 104-degree fever, and I was on the phone with the ER while stirring soup with one hand and holding him with the other. I remembered missing every birthday party for 5 straight years when I worked the night shift at the nursing home. I remembered pawning my mother's jewelry when his car broke down in college because he needed it to make it to internships. When Maria got laid off during the pandemic, who paid their utilities? I did, quietly, without asking for thanks. I just wired them the money and let them believe Daniel's bonus came early. And when Ava was born, who stayed up with the baby? When they both needed rest? Who stocked their freezer with home-cooked meals? But apparently none of that counted now, because I hadn't swiped my card at the grocery store last week. The motel room was small, 2 lamps, 1 window, and a shower that sounded like it was on its last breath. I didn't unpack. I just sat on the edge of the bed with my phone in hand and stared at my sister's message from earlier that morning. She'd texted me one simple sentence: "You want the key or not?" That was our shorthand. A few years before our dad died, he told us about the fourplex he'd bought decades ago and held in a quiet private trust, not listed in the will, not in any legal filing, just something he left to both of us directly. She'd been managing it quietly since he passed, keeping it up just enough to avoid city notices. I never pushed to use it. I didn't think I'd need to. But now I saw it for what it was, a second chance. I called her back and said I was ready to take it over. She didn't say, "I told you so," just gave me the address and said, "You're on the title, do what you want." I didn't cry, just sat there in that motel room, staring at the wall. They didn't just kick me out over food. They showed me exactly where I stood in their world. It wasn't rock bottom. It was clarity. The morning after they kicked me out, I woke up in that cramped motel room with a stiff neck and a tighter chest. There was a paper coffee cup on the bedside table, half full from the night before, and my phone buzzing with a message from my sister. "Heard what happened. Ready to talk?" I called her right away. We didn't talk often. Family stuff had gotten complicated after Dad passed, but this was different. When she picked up, she didn't say hello. She just asked, "So, you still want that key?" That was our code. Years ago, before Dad got sick, he told both of us something that wasn't in any will or document. Back when he was still sharp, he handed us each a duplicate key and said, "This building's not in my will. I don't want the government sniffing around. It's in a private holding in both your names. Tell no one." We were in our 30s at the time. The building was old then, a tired fourplex on the edge of a quiet neighborhood. But Dad held on to it, said it was just in case everything else goes to hell. I'd nearly forgotten about it. My sister hadn't. She'd been paying the basic taxes and utilities every year, keeping it afloat, never touched it otherwise. "It's empty now," she said. "I checked last week, not a single tenant. You can move in if you want, or do what you want with it. It's yours too." I thanked her and promised to take a look. That afternoon, I pulled up to the building in a borrowed car. It was worn down but solid, red brick, all 4 units intact, nothing broken. I stood in front of it for a full minute before unlocking the gate. The front door opened without a creak. No squatters, no vandalism, just dust and silence. I walked through each unit one by one, 2 bedrooms each, decent kitchens, private laundry. Everything needed updating, but the bones were good. I ran my hand along the railing on the upstairs landing and thought, this could work. More than that, this could change everything. I spent the next few days with a notepad, writing down repairs, measuring rooms, contacting contractors. I didn't tell a soul. Not even my sister knew how serious I was about fixing it up. The moment I knew I was staying came when I opened one of the closets in the back unit and found a stack of my dad's old ledgers. Inside, in his blocky handwriting, was a list of repairs he'd made, rent he used to collect, tenant names, even sketches for future renovations. He'd built this place with his own hands, a side hustle that turned into an insurance policy. He never bragged about it, never used it, just waited, quiet, intentional. I ran my hand over the old wood cabinet and whispered, "Thanks, Dad." He'd never been big on words, but this was how he said he still had my back. I didn't cry. I didn't need to. What I felt wasn't sadness. It was a fuse finally lit. I had shelter. I had power. And soon I'd have tenants. The building didn't look like much yet, but it was mine. I spent the next few weeks cleaning out old furniture, patching drywall, hiring painters, and scrubbing every inch of those units until they stopped smelling like stale air and forgotten time. I had no blueprint, just a checklist and pure spite. Unit 3 had the best lighting, so I moved into that one myself. I didn't tell anyone, not my sister, not a single friend, and definitely not Daniel. It felt good having something that was mine, untouched by their expectations or judgment. While construction crews worked during the day, I'd sit at the dining table and make notes. New cabinets? Check. Fix the hallway heater? Call Jerry? Post rental listings? Not yet. I wanted everything perfect, down to the last coat of white trim. By the time October rolled around, I had 3 fully renovated, clean, and bright rental units. No frills, but nothing broken either. I listed them anonymously through a property manager, an older woman named Teresa, who never asked questions. She posted the listings online, handled phone calls, scheduled tours. I told her I'd review applicants quietly from the background, and she agreed. It was only 3 days before the email came in. We've got a new application for Unit 1, couple with a young daughter, dual income, moderate credit, want to move in before November. Names, Daniel and Maria Carson. I stared at the screen. So long the laptop dimmed. Teresa had no idea who they were. She forwarded it like it was any other file. I clicked open their application and read every word. Daniel's signature, Maria's employment info. Ava's name listed under occupants, children under 18. There was even a polite note attached. We love the neighborhood, looking to start fresh after a rough few months. We're quiet, responsible, and looking for a stable place to raise our daughter. I almost laughed. Start fresh after shoving me out over frozen peas and bread. I called Teresa. Set the showing, I said. I'll come as your assistant. Don't tell them who I am. She hesitated. Are you sure? Very. The day of the showing, I wore a beige cardigan and pulled my hair back tight. Teresa introduced me as Marcy, my colleague. They didn't recognize me. Not at first. Daniel looked thinner. Maria wore sunglasses indoors. Ava was holding a stuffed rabbit by the ear, looking around like they'd moved 5 times already this year. It's small, Maria said, glancing around, but cleaner than the last place. Daniel nodded toward the kitchen. No mold under the sink. Last 2 had black rot. Teresa smiled politely. No mold. Owner just did a full renovation. New pipes, new floors. Then Maria said something that almost made me drop my clipboard. Does the landlord live here? Because the last one was always breathing down our necks. Teresa tilted her head toward me. She doesn't, but Marcy here helps out. Maria gave me a quick once-over. Well, as long as no one bothers us, we've had enough judgment. From family lately. I didn't blink. You'll find this building's very peaceful, I said, and the walls are thick. Ava ran into one of the bedrooms and shouted, This one's mine. Daniel followed her, muttering something about rent rates and finally having space again. Then I saw it. Maria reaching into her tote bag to pull out snacks. One of the granola bars she unwrapped? It was the exact brand I used to keep stocked. In my pantry when I lived with them. She tossed the wrapper into a nearby trash bin like it meant nothing. Teresa turned to me while they explored and whispered, You sure you want to rent to them? I kept my eyes forward. Let's wait and see how they handle the approval process. As we walked out, Maria called over her shoulder, We'll take it if the lease is fair. Just don't jack the rent up in 6 months. Daniel added, We're not looking for trouble, just stability. I nodded once. Of course. They left, hand in hand with Ava skipping behind them, clueless that they had just reapplied to live in a building I owned. I walked up the stairs, back to Unit 3, locked the door behind me, and sat in my quiet kitchen with my hands folded. They wanted stability. I was about to give it to them, for a price. The official screening process was just a formality. Their credit was passable, job history stable enough, and Teresa had already done a background check. But I wasn't interested in their paperwork. I wanted to see how they acted when they didn't know they were being watched. Teresa invited them back for what she called a final interview, just to walk through the lease terms and do a last Q&A. Standard, she told them. Happens with all applicants. They arrived early. Ava wore the same pink jacket I bought her 2 Christmases ago. Maria came in with makeup perfectly done, her heels too high for a casual viewing. Daniel wore a tired dress shirt, tucked sloppily into jeans. He looked like someone trying to impress, but too worn out to pull it off. Teresa had the lease folder open on the coffee table in Unit 2. I stood nearby again as Marcy, flipping pages and pretending to double-check tenant files. Maria scanned the kitchen and smirked. "These finishes are decent for the area. You'd never guess the outside looks so—" She trailed off and made a face. Daniel jumped in. "It's a good price, better than most. And honestly, as long as the owner's not weird, we're happy." I turned to Teresa and asked loudly enough for them to hear, "Did we finalize the lease increase structure yet?" Teresa replied calmly, 3% annually, 5% if property taxes jump. Maria's head whipped around. "You're raising rent every year?" Teresa nodded. "It's in the lease terms. Everything's above board." Daniel sighed. "Great. Just our luck. But honestly, it still beats living with family. At least here we don't have to walk on eggshells." I stared at him. He said it so casually, like they hadn't ambushed me out of my own life. Maria added, "We were doing someone a favor, and somehow we ended up the villains. It's always like that. People move in, eat your food, and suddenly think they're entitled to everything." Teresa looked over at me. She knew. I hadn't told her the full story, but she'd pieced together enough from the names. I could see it in her eyes. She let me lead. "And do you see yourselves living here long term?" I asked. Maria spoke first. "Depends. We're not looking to bounce around, but it all depends on how welcoming the environment is." She looked me dead in the face when she said it. My hands stayed perfectly still. "You'll find this place very welcoming," I said. "The landlord values respect above all." Daniel nodded, flipping to the signature page. "We just want to move on, honestly. It's been a rough year, people taking advantage, always someone mooching off us. No one respects boundaries anymore." I couldn't hold back. "Must be exhausting." Maria snorted. "Tell me about it." Teresa cleared her throat. "So, the final step, initial payment, first and last month's rent, and then you're set to move in by the 1st of next month." "Perfect," Daniel said, standing up. "Finally feels like something's going right." I stood too. "I'll make sure the place is spotless. Wouldn't want anything to ruin that fresh start." Maria turned to Teresa and asked, "We'll be dealing with you directly, right? Not her?" Teresa glanced at me. "No worries. Marcy just helps on the renovation and tenant screening side." Maria nodded slowly, still eyeing me. "Good. Nothing personal. It's just that we've had bad experiences with housekeeper types getting involved in management. Boundaries get messy." That was it. The moment. A soft, smug slap disguised as small talk. I looked right at her. "Don't worry. Boundaries are my specialty." They signed the lease, paid the deposit, shook hands with Teresa like they'd won something. Then they left, oblivious, holding Ava's hand and already planning how they'd arrange the furniture. I waited until their car pulled away, then turned to Teresa. "Still think I should rent to them?" She hesitated. "No, but I also think you know exactly what you're doing." I nodded. They wanted independence. Let's give them a taste of it. I wasn't going to evict them. Not yet. That would have been too easy. I wanted them to live under the roof I owned, to pay me, unknowingly, month after month. I wanted them to feel in control, only to realize slowly, painfully, that the control was never theirs to begin with. They moved in on a Saturday afternoon with 3 mismatched suitcases, a second-hand coffee table, and a chip on their shoulders. Maria was barking orders from the curb, and Daniel was carrying boxes like his back was already giving out. Ava ran up the stairs excitedly. She waved at me through the window of Unit 3 without realizing who I was. I gave her a little nod and turned away. Watching them settle in was surreal. They unpacked dishes I bought them 2 Christmases ago, hung a framed print I remembered helping Maria pick out when she was still pretending to like me, and placed their old couch, the same one I'd helped them clean after Ava spilled juice all over it, right against the far wall. They were trying to recreate stability. They had no idea it was all sitting on my floorboards. For the first few weeks, things were quiet. Rent arrived on time, no complaints, no maintenance calls. I saw them sometimes in the hallway or on the porch. Maria would nod politely. Daniel avoided eye contact. They still didn't recognize me. Not really. I'd dyed my hair darker and started wearing glasses. But I think deep down, Daniel just didn't want to see me. It was easier to pretend I didn't exist than face what he'd done. Then November's rent was 3 days late. Teresa texted me. Do we push a late fee or give them grace? I told her to apply the fee. Maria emailed the next day. There must be some mistake. Our bank shows the transfer on the 2nd. Teresa forwarded her the time-stamped transaction log. Payment posted on the 5th. That's 3 days late. Maria didn't respond. December came, and with it, another delay. This time, 5 days. Another late fee. Then came the complaint. The upstairs unit makes noise late at night, Daniel wrote. Whoever lives up there walks like an elephant. Teresa passed the message along to me. I read it and laughed. I walked that unit barefoot. They were hearing me. I decided to walk. Heavier, just a little, just enough. Maria knocked on my door one morning, clearly not expecting anyone to answer. When I opened it, she froze. Oh, I thought... Never mind. You needed something? I asked. She looked at me, frowning. Do you live here? I do, I said evenly. I've been here a while. I didn't know. Sorry if we've been noisy. Not at all. She stood there a second longer like she was trying to put something together but couldn't. Then she muttered something and walked off. In January, I raised rent 8%, still well within my legal rights, just high enough to sting. Teresa sent out notices to all tenants. Maria emailed again, this time angrier. We just moved in. Isn't this unreasonable? Teresa replied, rent increases were disclosed in the signed lease. Owner approved the adjustment. Maria replied once more, this time with attitude. Tell the owner to enjoy bleeding people. Dry. I almost sent a message back myself. Instead, I instructed Teresa to begin checking in on rent payments with stricter reminders. In February, they were late again. By now, I knew the signs. Daniel pacing out front on his phone, Mariah calling her mother, them skipping takeout nights and getting groceries in smaller bags. They were sinking, and I was watching, clipboard in hand. But what got me wasn't just the money, it was the shift in tone. In the hallway one day, Maria passed me with Ava and didn't even say hello. She just said to her daughter, loud enough for me to hear, some people really don't know when to move out of the way. I smiled. I wasn't in their way, I was above them, literally and financially. They paid me to live here. I was their landlord. They still hadn't figured it out, but they would. Soon. It was mid-March when the final rent check bounced. No. Warning, no apology, just a rejection notice from the bank and silence from their end. Teresa followed protocol, sent them the usual 3-day notice to pay or vacate, and waited. They didn't respond. Instead, Daniel showed up at her office unannounced, Ava in tow, looking worn down and desperate. He tried to argue that it must have been a clerical error, that their payment always went through, that they were model tenants. Teresa didn't argue. She handed him a printed breakdown of their late payments, penalties, and the bounced transaction. If you can resolve it by Friday, we won't escalate, she said. If not, the owner has authorized a formal eviction process. He left without saying anything else. That Friday came and went. No payment, no communication, just a long voicemail from Maria on Teresa's phone, saying they were under temporary financial strain and needed the owner to be more compassionate. I listened to the message 3 times. Then I told Teresa to go ahead, post the notice, file the paperwork. March 21st, 7:42 a.m., I walked down to Unit 1 and taped the eviction notice right on their door myself. I stood there for a moment, breathing in the silence, then walked back upstairs and watched from my window. 2 hours later, Maria opened the door and screamed. She pulled the paper down and stormed outside in her robe, dialing her phone with one hand and dragging Ava inside with the other. I waited. 2 minutes later, Teresa called me. They're demanding a meeting face to face. They're threatening legal action, claiming the eviction is retaliatory. Good, I said. Tell them I'll meet them tomorrow, here, noon. I spent that night ironing my clothes and printing a fresh copy of the lease with every clause, highlighted in yellow. Noon came, and I buzzed them into the building like it was just another meeting. They walked into the upstairs unit, my unit, clueless. Maria looked around, confused. I thought we were meeting the property manager. No, I said, standing by the window. You're meeting the owner. It took them a moment. Daniel's jaw moved, but no words came out. Maria looked from me to the lease papers on the table, back to me. Wait, what? I own the building, I said. Have for months. Signed over from my father's trust. You've been paying me rent this entire time. Maria blinked, rapidly. This is a joke. No, I said calmly. The joke was when you kicked me out of your home because I ate 2 extra eggs in a week. The punchline is that I now legally control the roof over your head. Daniel finally found his voice. You tricked us? You applied. I approved. You signed. I collected. What part of that is a trick? You let us move in here, knowing, Maria snapped, knowing exactly who we were? Yes, I said, and I gave you exactly what you claim to want. Independence, responsibility, and now, consequences. Maria stood frozen. Ava peeked around her leg, not understanding any of it, clutching that same stuffed bunny she always carried. Daniel started to plead. Mom, please. We have a kid. We're struggling. We made mistakes, okay? But don't do this. Don't throw us out. You threw me out, I said, and now the balance has returned. You're doing this. Out of revenge? Maria barked. How low do you have to be? I didn't flinch. I'm doing this to set a boundary. You had no problem evicting me when I was weak. Now I'm strong, and I'm done being used. Daniel stepped forward, voice cracking. What do you want from us? Nothing, I said. You can leave voluntarily or wait for the court date. Your choice, but either way, you're leaving. Maria stared at me, mouth open like she wanted to throw something, but there was nothing left to say. The power shift was complete. They turned and walked out without another word, the eviction notice still clenched in Maria's fist. The door closed. Silence. I stood in the middle of my living room and breathed in the clean, steady calm. I hadn't just evicted them from my property. I'd evicted them from the place in my life where guilt used to live, and it felt finished. They were gone by the end of the month, left behind a dented microwave, a broken drawer, and a trash bag they didn't bother tying shut. I paid a cleaning crew, changed the locks, and never looked back. No drama, no apology, just silence. Exactly what I wanted. Teresa handled everything professionally, never even mentioned their names again. I think she understood that this wasn't just business, it was closure. I didn't celebrate. I didn't gloat. I just got up the next morning, made a cup of coffee in my own kitchen, and sat by the window in peace. For the first time in years, I wasn't waiting for the other shoe to drop. No one was asking for money. No one was watching me like I was a burden. The apartment was mine. The quiet was mine. My decisions, finally, were mine. I kept the building, rented the other 2 units out to a retired teacher and a single mom with a newborn. Both paid on time. Both said good morning in the hall. That was all I needed. No drama, just decency. Some nights I'd sit out on the front steps with a book and think about everything I used to put up with. The guilt, the passive-aggressive comments, the cold dinners. And all of it over what? Groceries? Space? Ego? Let them have their pride. I have peace. And peace, I've learned, is the most expensive thing on earth, worth more than any house or bank balance. Do I regret helping them in the past? No. That was who I was. But I won't ever let who I was be used against who I've become. I gave them love. I gave them support. I gave them chances. And when they told me I was too expensive to feed, I gave them distance. The best gift I ever gave myself. That's it for today. What would you have done in her place? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I love reading what you all think. And hey, if this story hit you, check out these videos too. You won't want to miss them.